Why have Jews and Arabs been in conflict for thousands of years? The answer lies in a family story that happened 4,000 years ago and still determines the fate of millions of people today. Stay until the end, because I'm going to show you how it all started with two brothers, two different promises, and a fight that never ended. Get ready, because this is the origin of everything. If you want to understand what really happens in the Middle East and why this conflict seems impossible to resolve, leave your like now, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell. And share this video with those friends who need to understand the true root of this millennia-old conflict. This story will change your perspective on the news you see every day. Let's go back to the beginning of everything, Genesis chapter 12. God calls a man named Abram, who would later be called Abraham, and makes an extraordinary promise. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. This promise included countless descendants like the stars of heaven and possession of the land of Canaan. But there was a huge problem. Abraham was 75 years old, and his wife Sarai, later called Sarah, was barren. How would God fulfill this promise of descendants if they couldn't have children? Abraham believed God, but Sarah, after 10 years of waiting, decided to take matters into her own hands. And here's where everything starts to fall apart. Sarah had an idea that seemed logical in the culture of that time, but that would have catastrophic consequences to this day. She said to Abraham, "Take my Egyptian servant Hagar and have a son through her. That way you'll have your heir." Abraham, who should have waited on God, agreed. He was 86 years old when he had relations with Hagar, and she became pregnant. Thus was born Ishmael, who would become the ancestor of the Arab people. But this was not God's plan. It was a human plan trying to rush the divine promise. Problems began immediately. As soon as Hagar became pregnant, she began to despise Sarah. Sarah became jealous and began to mistreat Hagar. The tension was so great that Hagar fled to the desert. It was there that the angel of the Lord appeared to her with a prophecy that would shape the next 4,000 years of history. The angel said to Hagar in Genesis 16, verses 11 and 12, "You shall bear a son, and shall call his name Ishmael. He shall be a wild man. His hand shall be against every man, and every man's hand against him, and he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren." Do you realize what God was saying? Ishmael and his descendants would live in perpetual conflict, especially with their brothers, Abraham's descendants, through another line. Hagar returned and gave birth to Ishmael. Abraham loved this son. For 13 years, Ishmael was Abraham's only son, the apparent heir to all the promises. But then when Abraham was 99 years old and Sarah 90, God appeared again and announced that Sarah, the barren wife, would give birth to a son. Abraham even laughed and said, "Would it not be better for Ishmael to live before you?" He had become attached to Ishmael, but God was categorical. In Genesis 17, verse 19, he said, "Indeed, Sarah your wife shall bear you a son, and you shall call his name Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his descendants after him." This is the key to understanding everything. God chose Isaac, not Ishmael, to be the son of promise. The covenant, the blessing, the promised land, everything would be through Isaac. But note that God did not completely reject Ishmael. He said in verse 20, "As for Ishmael, I have heard you. Behold, I have blessed him, and will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. He shall beget 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation." 2 promises, 2 sons, 2 nations, but only one son of the covenant. And here begins the rivalry that lasts to this day. Isaac was born when Ishmael was 13. At first, everything seemed fine. But on the day Isaac was weaned, Sarah saw Ishmael mocking Isaac. The Hebrew word used here can mean mocking, but can also imply bullying or even persecution. Sarah demanded that Abraham send Hagar and Ishmael away. Abraham was distressed. Ishmael was his son too. But God said to Abraham, "Do not let it displease you because of the lad or because of your bondwoman. Whatever Sarah has said to you, listen to her voice, for in Isaac your seed shall be called." Abraham obeyed and sent Hagar and Ishmael into the desert. They almost died of thirst in the desert of Beersheba, but God heard the boys' cry and provided water. God promised again that he would make Ishmael a great nation. Ishmael grew up in the desert of Paran, became a skilled archer, and his mother got him an Egyptian wife. Now let's connect the historical dots. Ishmael had 12 sons exactly as God promised, who became 12 tribal princes. Genesis 25 lists their names: Nebajoth, Kedar, Adbeel, Mibsam, Mishma, Duma, Massa, Hadar, Tema, Jetur, Naphish, and Kedemah. These tribes spread throughout the Arabian Peninsula, and their descendants are the ancestors of the Arab peoples. Meanwhile, Isaac married Rebekah and had 2 twin sons, Esau and Jacob. God chose Jacob, later called Israel, and he had 12 sons who became the 12 tribes of Israel. The Jews are direct descendants of Jacob through the lineage of Judah. So here's the picture. Jews descend from Abraham through Isaac and Jacob. Arabs descend from Abraham through Ishmael. They are literally distant cousins, sons of the same ancestral father, but from different mothers and with different promises. But the story doesn't stop there. For centuries, these 2 lineages lived relatively separately. Ishmael's descendants dominated Arabia. Isaac's descendants settled in Canaan, the promised land we now know as Israel. The religious conflict intensified in the 7th century AD with the rise of Islam. Muhammad, who was Arab and claimed to descend from Ishmael through his son Kedar, founded a new religion. Islam teaches that Ishmael, not Isaac, was the son Abraham almost sacrificed, although the Bible clearly says it was Isaac in Genesis 22. Islam also claims that Ishmael was the legitimate son of promise and that the Jews distorted the scriptures to favor Isaac. This is a fundamental claim that puts Jews and Muslims in direct theological opposition. It's not just about land. It's about who is the true heir of Abraham. Fast forward to the 20th century. For centuries, Arabs lived in the region that the Romans had called Palestine after destroying the Jewish kingdom. But Jews also never completely left the land. There was always a Jewish presence in Jerusalem and other cities. After the Holocaust and the Zionist movement, the UN voted in 1947 to divide the land into 2 states, one Jewish and one Arab. The Jews accepted. The Arabs rejected. The day after Israel's declaration of independence in 1948, 5 Arab nations invaded: Egypt, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, and Iraq. Israel survived and even gained more territory. Since then, there have been wars in 1956, 1967, 1973, 2 intifadas, conflicts in Lebanon, in Gaza, constant operations. And the central question remains the same. Who has the right to the land? Who is the true heir of Abraham? For Jews, the answer is clear. God promised the land to Isaac and his descendants through Jacob. The Bible records this promise dozens of times. They see the return to Israel as fulfillment of prophecies thousands of years old. For Muslim Arabs, Ishmael was the legitimate son, and his descendants have equal, if not superior, rights. They lived in the land for centuries. Jerusalem is the 3rd holiest city in Islam. They see Israel as European colonizers taking their land. Here's the hard truth. This conflict cannot be resolved by political negotiations because its roots are not political. They are deeply spiritual and prophetic. The prophecy of Genesis 16 said that Ishmael would be against everyone, and everyone are against him. This is being fulfilled before our eyes. But there's something even deeper. This conflict is part of a larger prophetic plan. The Bible repeatedly prophesies that in the last days, all nations will turn against Israel. Zechariah 12:3 says, "On that day I will make Jerusalem a heavy stone for all the peoples. All who lift it will surely injure themselves." It's no coincidence that Jerusalem is the center of dispute. It's exactly what prophecy predicted. Israel is God's prophetic clock. The conflict between Isaac's descendants and Ishmael's descendants is a sign of the times. But here's something many miss. God loves both Jews and Arabs. Abraham is the father of both. God blessed Ishmael and promised to multiply his descendants. The problem is not with Arab people, but with religious and political systems that oppose God's plan. And there's a beautiful prophecy in Isaiah 19 that speaks of a future time when there will be reconciliation. Verses 23 to 25 say, "In that day there will be a highway from Egypt to Assyria, and the Assyrian will come into Egypt, and the Egyptian into Assyria, and the Egyptians will serve with the Assyrians. In that day Israel will be one of three with Egypt and Assyria, a blessing in the midst of the land." This means that one day God will bring peace between these peoples. But biblically, this will only happen when the Messiah, Jesus Christ, returns and establishes his kingdom. Until then, the prophecy of conflict will continue to be fulfilled. So what does this mean for you today? First, when you see news about Israel and Palestine, understand that it's not just politics. It's prophecy being fulfilled. It's the continuation of a 4,000-year-old story. Second, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Psalm 122:6 commands us, "Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May they prosper who love you." Pray for Jews and Arabs. Pray that many will come to the knowledge of Jesus Christ, the only one who can bring true peace. Third, don't take sides based on politics, but on Scripture. The Bible is clear about God's promises to Israel. This doesn't mean we should hate Arabs or Muslims. It means we recognize God's prophetic plan while loving all people involved. Fourth, understand that we are living in prophetic times. The fact that Israel exists again as a nation after 2,000 years is a prophetic miracle. The fact that Jerusalem is under Jewish control for the first time since 70 AD is prophetic. The ongoing conflict is prophetic. All of this points to the nearness of Christ's return. And finally, recognize that you are part of this story. If you are a Gentile Christian, Romans 11 says you have been grafted into the olive tree of Israel. You are a participant in the promises made to Abraham through faith in Jesus Christ. This is not a distant story about distant peoples. It's your spiritual story. Now I need you to do something very important. If this video opened your eyes to understand the true origin of the conflict between Jews and Arabs, you need to share this. Click the share button and send it to those friends who are confused by Middle East news. Help others understand the biblical and prophetic perspective of this conflict. Leave your like so YouTube shows this content to more people who need this understanding. Subscribe to the channel and activate notifications because I'll continue bringing teachings that connect biblical prophecy with current events. And comment below, can you see how prophecy is being fulfilled before our eyes? Your interaction helps more people find this video. The conflict between Jews and Arabs began 4,000 years ago with two brothers and two promises. It continues today exactly as prophesied, and it will culminate when Christ returns. Don't be on the wrong side of history. Be on God's side. Pray for all involved and recognize the times we live in. May God bless you and give you wisdom to understand the times. Until the next video.